Okay, so here we're going to look at the freestyle swim stroke. Now, there's obviously other swim strokes, and they all kind of bring with them different types of muscle activity, different types of joint kinematics. We're just going to strictly look at the freestyle swim stroke. And in general, when you look at the freestyle swim stroke, you have what's called a pull-through phase and a recovery phase. And we'll talk about the difference between each one of those. You see with this, we'll talk a little bit about the lower body. So the lower body really only contributes to about 10% of the speed of the swim stroke. So really, the upper body primarily really drives this motion. And that's why, so really from a muscular activity standpoint and joint perspective, we're going to primarily focus on the upper body. But to mention the lower body, because it does play a role, most of the motion is going to come from the hips. When you look at the rest of the lower extremity, the knee stays relatively extended and the ankles stay pretty much plantar flexed throughout the whole motion, if you kind of had to describe what was going on. The other thing you'll see particularly with competitive swimmers, is the rolling that takes place that allows them to breathe. So they're not breathing the entire time. They do hold their breath, but they roll to the side to kind of take their head out of the water and breathe. And it's always going to be to the side where the arm is out of the water, and that's just going to put a little less stress on the shoulder when they do that. So talking about the individual phases, we're going to talk about the pull-through phase. So obviously hand entry, the hand is entering the water. The pull-through is when the hand enters the water and ends when it exits. So we're going to go through an entire pull-through phase, talk about what's going on. Now, when we talk about hand entry, okay, as the hand enters the water, the wrist and elbow is going to extend, the scapula is going to be an upward rotation, and the shoulder is going to be elevated and into a little bit of abduction, okay? And you can kind of see that clearly in the picture here. So for the arm to be in this position, the scapula has to be upwardly rotated. The triceps are obviously going to extend the elbow. The deltoid and the supraspinatus are going to be contracting to abduct the shoulder. And the subscapularis is going to start a little bit of medial rotation of the shoulder. As we get into early pull-through, this begins essentially once the arm is fully extended officially. Again, the shoulder is going to be abducted, but it's also going to start to extend because, again, you're bringing the arm through in this fashion. The elbow is going to then start to flex, and then that's when the hand is going to begin to enter the deepest part in the water, and the muscles that extend abduct and then begin to downwardly rotate the scapula, because as the arm's coming down, downward rotation of the scapula is going to take place. The middle pull through ends when the arm is under and perpendicular to the trunk. So you can see here, this is essentially the end of the middle pull through, okay? You know, at the start of this phase, the palm is going to rotate inward, so you're going to be getting some internal rotation at the shoulder as well, so the humerus is going to medially rotate. The scapula is going to rotate downward, which again makes sense. Again up here, it has to upwardly rotate. As you bring that arm down, you're going to have downward rotation of the scapula. Muscle activity wise, you're going to have a high activity in the latissimus dorsi and the pectoralis major. The subscapularis is going to be working, and there's also going to be some elbow flexion, again, further taking place. When you get into late pull through is going to end when the hand comes out of the water. Okay, so we're still in the pull through phase in the picture here, because you can see the hand is still in the water. It's going to end when the hand comes out of the water. The scapula is going to be downwardly rotated. You're going to have extension and adduction, medial rotation of the humerus. The elbow is going to be extended. So again, you think about the muscle activity. You're going to have the posterior deltoid, which is going to change then to the anterior medial as the hand comes out. So the posterior deltoid is kind of active through most of the late pull through, but then when the hand comes out of the water into the recovery phase, you're going to have more anterior and medial delt. The tricep during this phase moves from more eccentric to more concentric activity as the elbow will start to extend. Then when we get into recovery, you're going to obviously have the potential you're going to have more trunk rotation taking place. This is where you'll also possibly get the person rolling in order to breathe. For the shoulder motions in recovery, you're going to start internal rotation, extension, and adduction. Once the hand then goes to re-enter the water, The shoulder is also going to be flexing and abducting as well throughout the phase. So you're going to move from scapular downward to upward rotation. So again, as the hand starts to come out, now the scapula is going to have to go back to doing some upward rotation once the arm gets positioned overhead and starts to get back into hand entry again. From again a lower extremity perspective, the hip flexors and the ankle plantar flexors are going to help kind of with the kick and roll during this. As far as the rotator cuff and the delt, again, they're both going to help in elevating the humerus and medially rotating, and the infraspinatus is going to be working eccentrically during the recovery phase. So this is kind of another important thing to note. So in the freestyle swim stroke, the freestyle swim stroke has kind of like an S-shaped pattern. So you notice here, so the arms don't just work, kind of in a straight sagittal plane with just kind of going through. They kind of take this S kind of motion. So if this is the start, if this is hand entry, this is as the hand goes through the water and through the pull through phase, and then here's where it comes out. So that's kind of another important point to note as far as, and this gives you another view as to what it actually looks like. So if you kind of combine this with the next page and think about with the previous page, and you think about the muscle activity, you can see what's going on with that. So again, the summary, note your muscle actions, the relationship between arm and leg action. We know that the arm action is going to contribute to most of the swim stroke. And then note the S-stroke pattern that is occurring. And these are the learning outcomes for the entire chapter. So again, describe the joint motions and muscle actions of the different activities. And again, the hope is that with seeing this and being able to understand it, you could then start to kind of break down. I'm only making you responsible. I'm only going to ask questions about these particular activities. But, again, the idea is then you could apply that to others, from a practical perspective. And in other classes, you're probably going to run into having to analyze other types of movements.